Madam Speaker, ambassadors, members of Congress and of the Senate, Mr. Barron, distinguished guests, fellow conservationists, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is a genuine pleasure for me to be with you here this evening. You know how close I feel to your country through both my mother's family and my own personal history. That's why I'm so happy to be here, the guest of the International Conservation Caucus Foundation, whose methods, based on dialogue and especially on environmental concerns, are extremely close to my own personal commitment. Your foundation, ladies and gentlemen, opens the way to a new perception of global problems, an approach that can bring together personalities from different political and professional horizons around a common goal. Today, this is rather uncommon, but I have no doubt that tomorrow it will be the norm in the face of stakes that cannot be reduced to sectorial approaches. From now on, we face challenges that far exceed those confronting us until now. When our environment is under threat, life itself is at stake. I'm thinking, of course, of our ways of consuming, working, and traveling that must adapt to dwindling natural resources on which we have built our growth. I will take only one example, and I don't mean to signal any industry, but it's a classic example, that of China. We realize today that if every person in China used as much paper as every American, China would use up over 300 million metric tons of wood, equivalent to all the forests on the planet. The same reasoning applies, of course, to other raw materials and to India, whose population, as you all know, will soon exceed China's. When I say that life is at stake, I'm thinking of the survival of all of mankind. Indeed, the facts are now known, and they are implacable. How will we be able to supply enough safe water to a population of 9 billion individuals when we already face so many difficulties with only 6 billion human beings? So when the World Bank fears that in 2025, 5 billion people will not have enough drinking water, how will we be able to satisfy their demands while also meeting the ever-growing needs of intensive farming? How indeed can we go on living in a world where 20% of the population is using 80% of all resources? It is simply not sustainable and not fair. We must devise a different way of managing our planet, acting through all possible means, mobilizing as widely as possible, and leaving no innovation unexplored. This is what we are doing, and this is what you are doing by bringing together policymakers and entrepreneurs, Republicans and Democrats, people from NGOs, and from all administrations. This is also what you do by undertaking specific and determined actions to raise awareness among people in charge from all horizons and from all opinions. These principles, ladies and gentlemen, are also those that guide my commitment. They explain why I decided to create my foundation a little over 3 years ago, to diversify my means of actions as much as possible, and to provide an international instrument complementary to other existing foundations, but to those actions of my country as well. The foundation, as was said, by previous speakers, is active in three main areas: the fight against climate change, and in that mostly research on clean and alternative energy, protection of biodiversity, which accounts for almost half of all our projects, and water conservation, and acts in partnership with other international institutions, local players, international organizations, corporations, and NGOs. Together, we strive to provide concrete, effective answers to problems linked to environmental degradation. Water management in Burkina Faso, support for Indians suffering from deforestation in the Amazon, protection of bluefin tuna, as you mentioned, Madam Secretary, in the Atlantic, but also the Mediterranean, and they're all part of the same group. The long list of our actions is testimony to the diversity of our concerns. But these projects address one or more of the Foundation's privileged areas, always with the same objective: refusing to give up in the face of imminent catastrophe. With local contacts, with our partners, with the populations concerned, this is what we do each and every day. For me, this diversified, innovative action is perfectly complementary to the policy I ask my government to conduct. A policy of determination, whether domestic, instituting sustainable measures for urban planning and transportation, or foreign, through diligent mobilization in international discussions on climate and international aid, targeting development, sanitary and social in particular, in the most vulnerable countries. Of course, Monaco is not a big country. It is not the United States of America, and our actions may seem very modest in the light of the problems we all try to address. But I believe, however, that what is essential, beyond obviously determinate quantitative results, is to show the way for responsible commitment and solidarity. A commitment from all our countries, regardless of their power, wealth, or size, or even beliefs, and all talents. What is most important remains not to be resigned tomorrow to becoming mere spectators of catastrophes caused by our own human activities. If we allow them to be perpetrated, these phenomena will be irreversible, whether it is the melting and disappearance of Arctic sea ice, the thawing of permafrost in the most northern regions, or the ocean's dramatic acidification. These phenomena would spare no region of the globe, and we cannot forget this. At the dawn of the International Year of Biodiversity, I ask my government to conduct a policy of determination, whether domestic, instituting sustainable measures for urban planning and transportation, or foreign, through diligent mobilization in international discussions on climate and international aid, targeting development, sanitary and social in particular, in the most vulnerable countries. Of course, Monaco is not a big country. It is not the United States of America, and our actions may seem very modest in the light of the problems we all try to address. But I believe, however, that what is essential, beyond obviously determinate quantitative results, is to show the way for responsible commitment and solidarity. A commitment from all our countries, regardless of their power, wealth, or size, or even beliefs, and all talents. What is most important remains not to be resigned tomorrow to becoming mere spectators of catastrophes caused by our own human activities. If we allow them to be perpetrated, these phenomena will be irreversible, whether it is the melting and disappearance of Arctic sea ice, the thawing of permafrost in the most northern regions, or the ocean's dramatic acidification. These phenomena would spare no region of the globe, and we cannot forget this. At the dawn of the International Year of Biodiversity, I can also mention the extinction of plant and animal species, entailing and inducing imbalance in many ecosystems, again, due to our own activity. These examples are many, and all with the same significance. In the face of such threats, which have already become a reality in some parts of the world, what is most important is to take action, to mobilize as many people as possible, and the will to engage in a fight that, if we carry it through, and conservation is at the very heart of that, will be the honor of our century for future generations. I cannot but think here, of course, of President Theodore Roosevelt, whose emblematic figure is so very present this evening. I'm thinking of his extraordinary ability to be ahead of his time by creating the system of national parks, forests, and nature reserves, and by introducing fairer, more sustainable water management. Teddy Roosevelt was one of the first heads of state to place the environment, a term that did not exist in his day, at the heart of a coherent vision for his country. This is not unlike the vision that my great-great-grandfather, Prince Albert I, had at roughly the same time. And there are a lot of similarities between President Roosevelt and my ancestor. And I want to point out also that it was pointed out to me earlier this evening that Prince Albert I was in Washington on this day 96 years ago for another event. But I'm sure he met President Roosevelt, and I'm sure they talked about all these issues. So since I have the opportunity to evoke President Roosevelt's memory, personality, I'd also like to emphasize his aptitude to be concerned with others, and especially to understand that the fate of most distant countries has an impact on those closest to us. All these issues, ladies and gentlemen, are not far away from what brings us here this evening. The Nobel Prize that crowned President Roosevelt's courageous endeavor to the service of peace resonates for all of us as an injunction. That of never being satisfied with thinking in terms of the here and now, but constantly seeking to understand the world with and for others elsewhere and tomorrow. This is why I'm so honored this evening to receive this award that invites me to follow in the footsteps of so lofty a role model. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I began by recalling the very strong ties linking me to your country. They include admiration, interest, and closeness. And in the name of these ties, in the name of your wonderful welcome for me and my party here this evening, I'd like to tell you how much I appreciate being able to count on you and the United States in the actions undertaken to save our common heritage and our planet. Thank you all very, very much.